three things.
Sorry, I forgot. Keep
That's
going.
I know it's like something that I need to do in preparation for the next few stages. If you see what I mean, I get that. But in
Yeah,
my head, I think, oh, that's a waste of my time. That I'm just writing a
yeah. Well,
load
you
of
have to,
words in a
you
book.
don't, to stop. Just don't think about it.
Mm,
So automatic writing is like doing those morning pages or whatever it is it Julia Cameron used to talk about,
that's right. Yeah,
morning
yeah,
pages. So just write anything. Just write anything, and eventually you start not connecting logically with what you're doing, and then ideas just come out, right? And the
mm,
more you, it's like everything, it's a muscle. The more you do any of this stuff, the better you become.
yeah,
So I would suggest you do that. Or one of the things you could do, actually, Elisa, if you find that really tricky, is have something that starts the process, a picture or something, and then you just start writing about the picture as if it's the opening scene of a film, and just start writing, and then let yourself go. All
yeah.
right.
Because I do look at a lot of pictures for inspiration for my glass, actually. So
Well,
that's
there we
probably
go.
a good. It's like killing two
Yeah,
birds with one stone, isn't
absolutely,
it?
absolutely. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'd be interested to hear what Minnie does actually, because you say you just do this automatic. Where, what if you weren't looking at a picture? What would you be writing? What about your day or your thoughts
It's
or?
it's really strange. It's really strange. You literally have to write every single word that comes to you. So I don't know if I've got it here. I don't, no, I have. No, I haven't. But I will put it in the
Good.
link. But you literally words come to into your head. Write them down. Just write them. Doesn't matter because they come. You'll feel the voice internally, and if you just get that done and write it before you think about it, if you see what I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
so you don't overthink
don't
something.
Don't think.
don't think at
Don't
all.
think.
Don't think
Yeah.
that's the conscious gatekeeper, if you like. Just don't think, just write, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, this pen or this pencil takes over. So I'll write word for word the complete gobbledygook that came to me last week because I thought, hey, yeah, I haven't done that for a while. Let's give it a go. See what you think, or don't think. It's really
Yeah,
good.
I
Because
mean,
what you could do with that as well is if you've got a lot of stuff there, you could do the cut up process with that as well,
Absolutely, yeah,
you
because
see.
yeah,
So, you know, what's not to like of that? And it's a good thing to do. Okay. Um, there was something that you said, Minnie, and I can't remember what it was now anyway. It might come back to me. So a couple of things I sort of dipped into with the book. Um, there was something about the choice of words, um, because obviously you can do all of this stuff and on um, work on an idea, have an idea sort of flow, and then it sort of comes to you sort of randomly, and then you can slot in things that you want to get across. Um, so, as an example of this, in the book, I talk about um, there's a couple of writers that do this type of stuff. Um, right, let's see if I can find the pages. Yeah, that's not the right one. I was, I was, I mentioned Alan Moore and uh, Grant Morrison, who, I mean, you could call them graphic novels, but they're more complex than that. But the idea is that sitting inside the text are sort of triggers. Sometimes they're done as an experiment. Grant Morrison did this a series of books called The Invisibles. And what he was playing with was this idea that could you create a piece of artwork that could affect your world or the world, the world around you? That was his sort of idea for the book. So the book is about a sort of a magical society that's sort of countercultural. And one of the characters in the book, called King Mob, is actually Grant Morrison. So he got this character to look like him. So he's got a sort of shaved head and quite sort of cool, almost Matrix type coat and all that type of thing. And what happened in the storyline is that this character, King Mob, gets sort of injected with some sort of poison that makes his skin sort of rot. And this actually happened to him in real life. He ends up in hospital with this peculiar virus. And according to Grant Morrison, what he had to do was to write himself back to health in the story. So it's quite intriguing, when you read his account of stuff. Now, what I find interesting is his idea that you could write a story in that sort of way, that there was an intention in the story, not whether the intention came true or not, but the fact that that was his sort of modus operandi, that he was writing a story to experiment with the power of words, which I think is pretty amazing. It's like he's like in another league of thinking, right? Alan Moore does this as well. Now, this is obviously not dissimilar from the NLP thing of hypnotic language. So the point about that is, when you're writing stuff, what do you want your world to be like? I used to have a little fob on my keyring, which my daughters gave me, and said something like, what was it? It said, I think it's something like, I wish I was rich and not so damn good looking, was the. And I just thought, well, actually, it's quite. Maybe I could have written some songs that would have made me richer, because when I looked back at a lot of the stuff I was writing about, it was always a bit like, typical early songs about you not having any money, or losing somebody or whatever, and I was thinking, well, perhaps I should have written more powerful songs.
The power of attraction, then, Mick.
Yes, I think there is an element of that. Whether that is that you're writing something that's already sitting in your unconscious, right? That starts, it's going to manifest anyway, or whether you actually do make that happen, is neither here nor there. It's just that either you know what's coming, or you make what's coming arrive. So it might be a good idea just to write something with some really powerful intent. And it's like, well, yeah, why not? Would that make a better song? Would it make a more interesting song? And I would say I think it would. I think it would make a more interesting song. So if you think about lyrics that you really like, that really strike you, they're not obvious. They're interesting. Sometimes they're very positive. They're not just a sort of rather sort of schmaltzy love song generally. You know what I mean? Ever think about that? Just sort of during the week, what songs you really like, and have a look at what's going on with the lyrics and see if there's something like that in the song. Right? I mean, it'd be difficult for you just, well, to pull a lyric out of the air, but maybe, I don't know. Have you got anything that springs to mind? You think, yeah, I really like that. Anyway, don't worry too much because it's a bit difficult to pull a rabbit out of a hat like that. But what I'm suggesting is that that's what I think is going on anyway with really good songs. They have a way of impacting, and it might be something that the person's put out there in the lyric, right? Okay. So yeah, choose some interesting ideas like that, some sort of intention. Okay. So think about the power of words. Now, one of the things that I do, and I think I've done this at Blues Camp, Lewis, I don't know, I did this when you were here, but sometimes I do this thing where I get people to walk across the room and say a load of positive words, and then you know, everybody else is just basically watching them. When people do that, they tend to sort of walk upright with some sort of real intention. And then you do the opposite thing where you get them to walk across the room and say a load of negative words. And then you watch their body language. And what they tend to do is they start to shrink. And they're not, you know, if you think, well, if that's what's actually going on with just saying words, words have got real power. So again, think about that. So you can insert ideas. Right?
You can create spells.
Yes. Exactly. Because that's what we're doing all the time.
Yeah.
And of course, when we talk about spells, we are spelling. It's all in the language. It's like it's just staring you in the face. Okay. So another thing I think is really interesting, certain phrases carry a weight. So not just the words, not just separate words, but phrases that have been said by people. So if you think of great orators, you can borrow some of their lines, right? So Martin Luther King,
Yeah.
you know, something that's sort of, you know, uplifting, you know, so any great orator. So you can just borrow one of their lines. Okay. Another technique is to take something and twist the words around. So I took William Blake's poem Tiger, Tiger and did that. And I did this, well, it was in the 1980s I did this actually. So what I did was I kept, the chorus was really the sort of the stanza that you know, that, you know, Tiger, Tiger, burning bright. But then I played with the idea. So obviously this tiger was obviously was a woman. But I kept the structure of the poem more or less intact, but I just twisted the words enough or changed the words enough to sort of pun and make things slightly ambiguous. Right. And that's a really good technique, actually. And
So
I don't
what
think
did you write?
Sorry?
What was it that you wrote?
It was a song.
Yeah. Now, how did you change Tiger, Tiger, Burning
Right.
Bright?
So I'd have to send you the lyrics because it'd probably
Okay.
be the easiest way of me doing it. So it would be, yeah. So the first three lines of the chorus are the same. So Tiger, Tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night. Yeah, I kept that part the same. What immortal hand or eye could change yours? Perfect symmetry, because he said fearful symmetry, and then the strap line was Tiger, Tiger, I love you. Right? And then I started to play with the verses. It became more obvious that I was moving away from the poem. Right? So if you think you've got all that stuff out there, you know, all these amazing poems that you can sort of look at for ideas, and be inspired and to sort of use, and also to pick up what the power is in that line. What is it that makes you go, wow? And then use it.
Yeah, actually, it was interesting. We had that conversation about imitation, and then people who iterate and iterate, you then get an art genre. On the last session, and yesterday I was reading Ginger Gilmore, Dave Gilmore's first
Yeah.
wife, and she said something amazing that Dave Gilmore said, I just, how I became proficient at guitar. He said, I just copied and copied and copied. And then in inverted commas, it's okay to copy, he said. And then sooner or later, all of a sudden, I was making sounds that were mine.
Yeah.
So it's similar sort of thing. You're taking a poem.
But of course, when David Gilmour was learning to play the guitar, you couldn't just go and buy the music book.
No.
So he was copying off a record, so he wasn't getting it quite right.
Yeah.
Because I've got a good ear, and I couldn't get it 100% right. And it used to drive me out the wall sometimes, working things out, because you'd slow a record down and it becomes a bit of a dirge. So when you make mistakes, this is a very important point. When you make a mistake, sometimes it's the best thing you've done. I think that's a really good point. When you make a mistake, sometimes it's the best thing you've done. Okay. And of course, it won't be the same as what you've copied. So it's yours now. Great. So here's another thought. I've put here, what invocation can you use? Now I'm going to put this into NLP terminology. There's a thing called modeling. Now that's not walking down a catwalk, getting the swagger or whatever it is with the coat and all that stuff. When you drop the coat. Anyway, so modeling is copying the modalities or submodalities that people have. So what I mean by that's the sensory connection that people have to something. What do they see? What do they hear? What do they feel? Right? And you can then manipulate them by working on what they call the submodalities are. So if it's something about what you're hearing, do you hear it in stereo? Do you hear it in, is this memory that you're recalling, are you only hearing it in one side or whatever? What are you seeing? Are you seeing it in black and white, this memory? Okay. And it's sort of like a code. That's how we think about it in NLP. It's a code. And then by modeling that, you can make your thing more like this person you're modeling. Now, the initial thing of this is you can literally stand like the person if you're a performer. I've mentioned this in Blues Camp. But you can stand like the person. You can move like the person. You can, hold a microphone like the person, and you sort of move into their persona. Now, I mentioned in the book about Prince, because he does it. Because if you watch Prince, he obviously copied people like James Brown. You've only got to watch a clip of James Brown and then watch Prince, and you go, it's the same moves. They're exactly the same moves. His dance routines are identical. And then you watch him play the guitar, and it's like, that's Jimi Hendrix, right? He's got all these Hendrix moves. So this is what this guy was. He was a master sort of modeler. But nobody ever looked at them and went, oh, it's James. It was Prince. That's the point. Okay. So here's a point that you can try. Think that you are Paul Simon when you sit down to write. Just imagine you're Paul Simon. Get a picture of Paul Simon, imagine that you're looking in the mirror and you start writing. And then you could do a bit of your automatic writing then. So there's an interesting story I remember reading in a book by Montgomery, a British general. And of course he was fighting Rommel in the desert. And he used to have a picture of Rommel on the wall he had like a sort of like a railway carriage type thing, that it was his, like a caravan type thing that he would sit in, and he would have this picture of Rommel, and he would sit there and he would say, and what are you going to do now? He would ask the picture, what are you doing now? So, I mean, this stuff is, you think, well, sort of, a lot of people go, well, no, this is interesting, because it's like this business of putting yourself in a different mindset. So when you're writing, think like that. Put yourself in another mindset. What's it like to be Joni Mitchell? Write like Joni Mitchell. And the thing it will do is it will change the way you write. Okay? I can guarantee that it will change the way you write. Cool. All right. You can just interrupt me if you want at any point.
I will interrupt you.
Excellent.
I was just going to say, so I was thinking I would like to perform like Tina Turner, sing like Annie Lennox, but I wouldn't know who I'd want to write like, if you see what I mean. So I need to figure that out. Yeah, I know, but someone that that's meaningful, I can relate to, who is positive and that sort of thing. So I kind of need to figure that out for myself.
Yeah, but again, it's like a lot of these, you're practicing to do this. So just try somebody and then try somebody else. Try writing like Paul McCartney. Try writing like, Blondie.
Yeah, that's more like it.
Right? Well, you can see what I'm getting at. And it does. I mean, you could even try writing like somebody who didn't exist if you wanted to. You could think, well, okay, you could do anything. It's just really unlocking creativity. Because, to be honest, most of what we do, we don't know. And we certainly really don't understand the creative process anyway, really, do we? Logically. I mean, most of this doesn't make any sense. I was talking to somebody the other day who's a guitar teacher, and he works for one of the examination books that I examine with. And in the early days, we used to have these sort of conferences, and because I'd finished this sort of NLP training, I managed to sort of sit down with some really well-known guitar players and sort of do sort of an interview, an NLP sort of hypnosis interview. And so I interviewed a classical guitar player called John Mills, who was, along with, he was one of the sort of top players in Britain. A guy called Ray Burley was another, who used to play for the English Chamber Orchestra. And the interesting thing about these people is when you interview people who are good at something, and the idea is you take them to a memory of what it's like when they're doing something, and it's absolutely peak performance, right? Their optimum playing level. And you sort of take them there and you get them to sort of, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt, type of thing. And then you get them to describe something about what they do. And the first thing they say is, I don't know. How do you do that? And they go, I don't know. Because it's not in their conscious mind. See? And then you sort of dig a bit deeper, and then they'll say something really weird. And this is quite normal. So there's a famous NLP example of this with Richard Bandler, where he gets a load of golfers on a golfing range because he's being paid by somebody a lot of money to make him a better golfer. So he just gets some top golfers together. And he asked them, he said, no, I can't. He said, I can't play golf. Right? But he was talking to them about doing this, whatever it is, on the, I don't play golf either. So. And he said, so these people, they're standing there and they're swinging their clubs, and then suddenly they hit the ball. So he says to them, so how do you know when to hit the ball? Because you don't hit it straight away. How do you know? And he said they sort of go into a bit of a sort of a trance and they go, I don't know. And then somebody will say something really weird, like, the fairway shrinks. Right? And he said that we got, as soon as they got into that sort of zone, they were starting to say things like, yeah, so when you're putting, so when you putt, this guy was getting the in his mind the green to tilt. Right? So when he hit the ball, the tilt would take it into the hole. And you hear this thing with people playing like baseball, when they watch the stitching of the ball that's traveling at them at some ridiculous speed. So they slow the ball down in their head. So this is quite, in sports psychology, this is quite well known. So going back to the guitar players, I had one of them, and it was this guy, John Mills. And I said, so the last piece of music that you were studying, how did you know when you'd got to the level that you were happy with? And his first thing he said, and he went, I watch the people dancing. What people are those? And he was quite irritated. He went, the Elizabethan people, of course. I was like, oh, okay. So, you're imagining Elizabethan people dancing. That was what it was. So that's interesting. So think creatively about that. Put yourself into the sort of zone about what it is if somebody else is writing, and see what happens. Try it out. Cool. How are we doing? I don't even know what the time is.
22.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Right. So I've got, oh yes, there's another to do. I've been working on another book, which will probably take me 4 years to write anyway. So I've been reviewing two little sort of pamphlet things I wrote years ago. One was sort of like playing creatively, and the other one's about practicing. And one of the things that I sort of stumbled across when I was reading this was a chapter that said training the mind to see new things. And I think one of the things that is really important is to unlock, there are certain parameters that we set around our thinking, right? And they're often difficult to see what they are because we're seeing them. Somebody else is seeing them, right? But we might not until suddenly we see them, and then we can't unsee those things. So there was a story, I think, I don't quote it here, but there's a story about a woman who goes to interview Richard Branson for a business magazine or something like that. I think it was obviously one of his autobiography type things was coming out, right? So she does this interview with him, and he's sitting on this, they're sitting in a cafe somewhere, you know. So she, just before the end of the interview, she said, Richard, could you give me some ideas about what business I could start? So he looks around, and this is going back a little bit. Looks around, he went, oh, you see that thing over there? That's sort of like an outside heater. And it was one of these lamps. He said, I've started noticing them. He said, I think you should find out where you can get them and start selling them. And she went, oh, okay. And obviously didn't do anything about it. And of course, shortly afterwards, it became this phenomenon that these outside heaters were everywhere, weren't they? And they were a particular type, you know. And what she sort of said was, in retrospect, how did he manage to do that? Just literally straight away for being asked a question. And he just sort of looked around and went, oh, yeah, look, that over there. Right? Now, what's happening there is she's got something that stops her seeing those things, stops her seeing opportunity. And he hasn't. In fact, he's got the opposite. He's got something that just alerts him to opportunity. So when you're writing, think like that. Start the process of when you're writing something, you are changing the world as you write in the way that you want it to be. Because it's just that thing of changing your parameters. Does that make sense? And you don't have to believe it. In fact, just suspend your disbelief. You don't have to believe anything. In fact, it's better not to believe the thing or just pretend that you believe the thing. Because it has an impact. You know, it's the fake it until you make it. You must have heard of that. It's exactly that sort of process. Just suspend your disbelief. And that, in fact, I think that comes from the I Ching, suspend your disbelief. So, I mean, typically the ancient Chinese have got there well before us, as usual.
Why
Okay.
do you say it's better not to believe?
I would say just suspend your disbelief.
Yeah.
It's like a neutral place. Because there's something interesting about that. I was listening to a really fascinating program about Taoism. So that's the sort of Chinese ancient sort of philosophy, and they were saying that the Taoism that you see in China is nothing like the Taoism. Really, it's this sort of facade of, you know, they got the temples and all the rest of it, because it's communist culture. They're not allowed to do anything that will frighten the horses, basically. But their sort of idea is extremely sort of animist. But they had this thing about life, man, being the sort of at this sort of, what's the, when you get two circles and you get the bit in the middle, what do you call that?
Venn diagram.
You know, you get your two intersecting circles and the bit in between.
It's the
What's it called?
something like viscopicia.
Yeah, something Pisces.
It's
Yeah. That thing.
It's
That
the
one.
lapping bit.
Yeah. So in other words, that thing that
Part of
sits.
the flower of life. Sorry,
Yeah.
part of the flower of life, kind
Yeah.
of.
So the Taoist thing is that they've got the thing about heaven and earth, right? So sort of the cosmos, you can look at it anyway. Consciousness and earth, right? And that sort of man is in this unique position in the Taoist idea that you're in that point. And if you're not embracing both of those bits, you're not in your right place. And most of us aren't. Right? And as far as their point of view is, when you're in that space, that is the point of enlightenment. It's just, you're there. You don't have to try to be there. You're just there, type of thing. You're in the Tao, type, as they put it. So there's an important point about that thing of using physicality and consciousness, all right, or imagination, I would say, because, you know, when we think of consciousness, we think about it as, you know, using logic only now, but it isn't. It's about using your imagination and logic, but, you know, you've got to use both. And I think that's one of the things that we sort of need to understand, how we can just let go of the things that inhibit us and open our minds to being able to think really creative thoughts, even to the point that they don't make sense, right? Because they might not make sense at the moment, but they might do soon. Do you follow me on that? Because if somebody predicts the future really well, you wouldn't actually be able to explain it. Because if you think about, if you went back only a short period of time, you could never have explained things like mobile phones. Because the technology wasn't there in a way that we could see it. All right? This is what I was saying, when people sort of predict the future, there's always like this sort of Edwardian picture of what the future will be like in the year 2000. It's people with bicycles that float in the air, but they're still wearing Edwardian clothes. Because they can't project. That's the point about logic. You can't project forward, because there's all these other bits that come in and change what it is. The essence can be there. The essence of it can be there, but not the narrative. So when you create ideas and stuff, they can be as far out as you want, and you might be right. That's what's exciting about this whole creative process. Okay. Right. So we've got some stuff about automatic writing, and do you want to post some stuff up about that, Minnie? That'd be brilliant if you want to do
Yeah, I will. I've just
Yeah.
found it actually, but I
If
won't.
you if there's a problem with you actually being able to upload, I'll try and work out how to do that, because I can only see the site from me.
Okay.
But when you try it, if you can't do that, we'll work away. And likewise, anybody else, if you want to upload stuff, let me know. If you can't do it, we'll get around that. Now, I posted up a load of lyrics last time that were sort of work in progress. A lot of them have changed, and I can't remember which ones have changed. So I'll have a look at those and post some other bits up.
Vic, where is it that you're posting to? Because I haven't
There's the
received anything.
Facebook site, which is with that title.
Ah, okay. As long as I
Right.
know where that's going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just go and have a look at that.
Yeah.
And then if you've got any questions, anything that you want to try out, Bet suggested doing some songs in Welsh, which I think is a fantastic idea. But would you like to make a start on doing something like with Cut Up, where you could put
Yeah.
some ideas down, and then see how that goes? And then if you need, some help.
Well, like I explained to you, I'm going on holiday soon and I'm taking a book with me, and that's when I intend to sort
Yeah,
of
okay.
get into it and
Yeah.
hopefully be inspired with new surroundings and what have you, and a new persona while I'm away.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm assuming you're going somewhere in Wales, are you? Not
No, I'm going to Italy.
You go where?
Italy.
Oh, well, you will be inspired in Italy. Well, you'd be inspired in Wales
Quite
anyway.
inspired in Wales, I was going to
Exactly.
say.
Exactly. Right. Okay. We'll have fun with that. But yeah, so we'll just get some things up and running, and I mean, listen, if you want to post up some pictures of your glass work, because it's wonderful.
That sounds
Oh,
lovely.
thank you.
Yeah, do that.
Okay. Well, if that might help.
No, what I'm thinking is,
Okay.
I actually think what you're doing there is the answer to what, when you say, "Oh, I have a problem with that." I reckon you've already sorted it out with that.
Mhm.
And it's that sort of thing that you've got to let go of something, and it will come out, as it will come out. Yeah.
Okay. Mm.
Cool. Right then. There was one other thing, but I think I'll leave that to next time. So is there any questions before we wrap up?
Well, I've just looked up the thing we were talking about. It's Vesica Piscis.
Yeah,
Some
that's
sort
it.
of thing.
That's exactly it.
There we go.
Vesica Piscis.
That's it. Yeah, it's a very interesting shape, and you see it a lot in. It's one of those things. Once seen, you can't unsee.
Yes.
So you see it in
Yeah.
other.
Sacred geometry is full of it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. There's have you heard of Caroline Carey?
I've heard the name, but
Yeah, well, Caroline does a lot of stuff about that. She gives it another name, actually. This is exactly the same process. And she does it as a sort of like a psychological process, where she gets you to think of different aspects of things, and then that you find that sort of middle ground between the positive things and the negative things. Yeah. Yeah.
it's interesting.
So there we go. That's another interesting rabbit hole we could go down. All right. Okay. I think we're done.
Yeah, Vic, I just want to, the Facebook group that you were referring to.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know if you can
Yeah,
see
it's
that.
something like that. It'll
Is it,
actually say the title on it as well.
yeah, but is it like a group that people join?
Yeah,
Because
you
I
just join
can't
it.
see how you join it. I can't
Oh, I'll
see
send
how
you a
you do
link.
that.
You should. You should have had it. Should have had a
No,
link sent to you.
yeah, this is what I think I was a bit confused about.
No, okay, that's
Yeah,
all right. I'll send you a link.
thank
I'll make
you.
sure you're
Okay,
on it.
okay.
All right. And then obviously Steve's hovering in the background there. I'll make sure Steve's on there. I think everybody else is on it actually. So, all right.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Well, have fun.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Ta-da.
Okay.
See you then.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
You
Bye.
too.
Bye then.
Bye.
Bye.